But right now, over to the phones we go. Media reporter for National Review Online, Brendan Bordelon's on the line. Brendan, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for taking time out of your morning for us. So, everything in Iowa swimming along nicely?
They had 9 candidates out at Milwaukee's Point of Grace Church, which is in the Des Moines area. 9 different Republican candidates in 5 hours, if you can believe it. And it was an evangelical invite. There was about 1,000 people, mostly Iowa Republican activists. I think the ticket was around $200 or so these people are invested in the caucuses. And, it was a great time.
The evangelical, social conservatives specifically, about 60% of the caucus goers in Iowa, which is why an event like this is so important in kind of setting the table for what to expect down the line. So some first impressions were made. Tough to shake at first impression. What did some of the newer candidates say to the crowd, and who was well received?
Well, I think what looks like to be the front runner with the D.C. establishment at this point, or at least one of the major front runners, Marco Rubio, he was received well, but not. Everybody was looking to see how he was going to do. Obviously, he's one of the most recent candidates to declare, and I think there's just kind of a sense that Midwesterners are tired of a governor from the South. I kept hearing that over and over. They don't really know Rubio that well, and there's this feeling that there is such a good crop of Midwestern candidates this time around. Scott Walker was one of them, but there are a lot of others as well that I think Rubio is not quite going to hit it in Iowa, or at least he hasn't hit it yet. There was a lot of surprises. I think there was a feeling that Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum were going to perform better than they did. If you remember, Huckabee won the caucuses in 2008, Santorum in 2012. They both really wear their Christian faith on their sleeves and have appealed in the past to evangelical voters. But I didn't really see that this time around. I think there's a feeling that Huckabee might be a little bit too economically progressive, and Santorum has been pushing this economic populist message that I just don't think is resonating in the new post-Tea Party Republican Party, even with evangelicals.
Scott Walker have any built-in advantage, as you mentioned, with the geographical tastes of the people there, thinking, more Midwestern? Here's a guy who's pretty darn close.
Yeah, I think he kept saying that he had spent time in Iowa. I think he grew up in Iowa at some point. He lived there for a time when he was a child. He's obviously right next door. People know him. People seem to just have like a cultural connection with him, and he does seem to strike a good line between the establishment wing of the party. People, like the big money DC donor class love him because of his ability to take on the unions and win 3 elections, including a recall election, which had never been done before. And I think he also can speak better to the more conservative wing of the party. He does have some issues with evangelicals. When he was running last fall against a female challenger, he ran an ad that was, he said, while he was pro-life, he believed that abortion is a choice between a woman and her doctor. That really hasn't percolated very much in the Iowa evangelical community yet, but it's expected to in the next few months, and that could cause him some problems. But overall, he was definitely very well received there.
I don't remember seeing that ad at all. I have to look that up on YouTube, perhaps. Brendan Bordelon with us, a political reporter for National Review, nationalreview.com. He's in the 2016 race, of course. You mentioned some Iowans might have been tired of Southern governors, but one Southern governor apparently did pretty well. Bobby Jindal from Louisiana, barely breaking 2% in Iowa polling, but you report was the hit of this little get-together.
Yeah, it was strange. As you said, he barely breaks 2% in Iowa. He's barely over 1% nationally, and I don't think most reporters were taking him very seriously. But when he hit that stage, he had this kind of Southern preacher revivalist kind of sense that it really connected immediately with the crowd. It was almost like a comedy night as much as it was a political speech, because people were just laughing and cracking up. He killed it out there. I was impressed to see it. He got the only standing ovation of the night when he said something like, the United States didn't create religious liberty created the United States. The audience ate that up. That having been said, when I was walking outside of the speech area talking to attendees, a lot of people didn't really know who he was. It was like a great speech, and people were really impressed by him. But afterwards, it was like, oh, he's a Louisiana governor? Is that right? So I think he's got a long ways to go, but it was impressive to see how he was able to work that crowd. And Iowa Republican leaders I talked to have said that he's been trying to make inroads with the evangelical community for quite some time, and I think it started to pay off on Saturday.
Spending some time with Brendan Bordelon from National Review, nationalreview.com. John Kasich, running for president, is he the real deal?
If he's running for president, he needs to get in the race soon, I think. I think he is the real deal. I think Republican strategists look at him as a serious contender. He has a great record in Iowa in terms of job creation, in terms of shrinking debt. It was amazing to see his election. He crushed the competition last fall. That having been said, there's also issues with Kasich. He expanded Medicaid under new Obama rules, and a lot of Republican governors decided not to do so. And he actually did so under executive order, so he bucked his own Ohio Republican legislature. That's kind of stuck in the craw of a lot of fiscal conservatives. But he can appeal to the more moderate wing of the party. He's kind of like a Chris Christie in that way, in that he has kind of that abrasive, no-nonsense, tough-talking, pragmatist approach that could serve him well. But then again, there's other candidates in the race that are like that. So that's something that he's going to have to deal with. But if he decides to run, he's got to get moving, I think.
Oh, it looks like he will. He's got a 527 group, New Day for America. I've heard a few interviews with them where he certainly sounds like he wants to get in this race. He might not play in Iowa, but is he the kind of candidate that can steal a win in New Hampshire, especially in a crowded field?
Yeah, I talked to people that are close to the governor, and they're counting on New Hampshire as being his best bet. I think New Hampshire does have that kind of... They enjoy the iconoclastic appeal of a governor that's not afraid to kind of stick a finger in the eye of his own party and buck establishment ideas. But so he really needs to get out into New Hampshire as soon as possible if he's going to do that. And I think he's behind the eight ball. I was talking to someone who worked on the Romney campaign, and they said Romney in 2011 made it out to New Hampshire 100 times before the primary. Kasich's been, I think, twice this year.
So I guess the key to making your stand in New Hampshire is to have them go, oh, that guy's here again.
Yeah, you just got to go up to all the townships up north. Some of these townships there's only like 50 or 60 people voting, so you have to it's going to break like 24, 21, and you got to win those townships. So you've got to go out and connect individually with these New Hampshire voters, and that's just going to take a lot of elbow grease. And there's a feeling of whether Kasich has the discipline to do that. Also, whether he has the stamina, when he's also running a major state.
Brendan Bordelon with us from National Review, nationalreview.com, political reporter. Back to your evangelical piece for a second. The all-important race for Iowa's evangelicals is wide open. There's a quote in there from a volunteer at the event on Saturday that said, there's a big movement away from big government, and perhaps evangelicals are newly focused on fiscal issues. You mentioned this earlier. Both Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee have sort of drifted toward this economic populism, I guess you'd call it. That might not play well with the same voters who might be the ones to open them with open arms, so to speak. So where's the opening for someone else to jump in and perhaps pick up the mantle of being both a social conservative and yet talking about scaling down the size of big government?
Yeah, I think Ted Cruz fits that bill perfectly. He really did hit the right notes at this conference on Saturday. I wouldn't say that, I think Jindal outperformed him a little bit, but he had the same kind of preacher-like stride going, and he was definitely very well received. He knows how to talk the talk on religious liberty, on abortion, on gay marriage. He's very effective at that, but he's also a very strong fiscal conservative. He's come out against some of the, what conservative Tea Party types would see as the worst excesses of the Obama era. If you remember in 2013, he was the standard bearer for the Obamacare shutdown. And so I really think he probably has the best chance to mesh those two together, the social conservative and fiscal conservative side. And I really do think that's going to be key this time, because this isn't 2004 when evangelical voters push Bush over the top with gay marriage. I think people are very much concerned with economic issues now, and even as much as abortion and gay marriage might factor in these debates, they want to see a candidate that can deliver both.
Before we let you go, Brendan, looking like both Carly Fiorina and Ben Carson will be announcing their entries into the race in the next week or so. Should voters, should pundits be taking either one of those candidates more seriously than they are right now?
I think Carly Fiorina is actually already being taken pretty seriously. Maybe not as a presidential candidate, but I think a lot of people see her as angling for a vice presidential role, especially because Hillary Clinton is going to be, or is the presumptive Democratic nominee. I think there's a feeling that people want to see a woman on the ticket. And I think she's effective. I think she was very effective in Iowa on Saturday. She was actually in Iowa for most of the week, and when I was talking to activists, she impressed them almost across the board. Carson, I think Carson is going to get himself in trouble. He has in the past already with a bunch of statements on gay marriage, and he kind of talks himself in circles on foreign policy sometimes. I have a feeling that he's going to do well with the Iowa evangelical crowd, at least at first. But I worry that he isn't quite up to speed on what it takes to run a presidential campaign yet, and I think that's probably going to hurt him. But I think he will declare.
And on a more personal note, Brendan, where do you prefer hanging out more, Iowa or New Hampshire, when you're looking for a good time?
Well, I've actually never been to New Hampshire. I'm looking forward to going. But Iowa was great. I was at a Perkins, which is like an Iowa-style Denny's, at 1 in the morning on Saturday. It was Sunday morning, and I had some great pie. It was a good time. Iowa, it's an interesting place. People are very, very invested in politics there, almost everybody. And it's interesting to talk to everyone and get their opinions.
He's Brendan Bordelon with National Review. Brendan, thanks for taking time out of your morning for us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.